Trade deadline, Miami Dolphins fans, a time of the NFL season where there can be some excitement some years, and then there's some years like this where you're scouring the roster looking for which guys maybe can we unload, maybe get some future draft capital, something that we can work with moving forward. And unfortunately, at 2-6, playoffs probably a very, very long shot at this point in time. I've gotten some questions in the most recent videos that I did, like, hey, if there's a player that maybe you think the Dolphins could trade for here before the deadline that could help maybe turn this team around. And I try to be as optimistic as possible, but Dolphins fans, there's not a single player that we could go out and get and afford to get that's going to turn this year around. Because at this point in time with 6 losses, we're looking at what? Max probably one more loss, maybe 2 in a crazy year, but 1 or 2 more losses, and you're not even looking at that 7 seed. So at this point in time, I don't see the Miami Dolphins buying anyone. So that kind of turns my attention to, well, who are some of these guys that maybe we can unload? Because I don't think we're at a point with this team where we need to sell off. Sunday against the Buffalo Bills, maybe to a little bit of a degree, proved that, you know what? We're really not that far away. With this core group of guys that we have, we got to get some things to break our way. We need some more pieces. We need a lot of the fundamental things to really get cleaned up. So don't get me wrong. We're not that close yet, but it's not to the point where 2019 we got to blow this thing up and start from scratch. It's not to that point. But you know what? At some point in time, there's maybe some guys on this roster that, you know, you get some more of those draft picks, maybe get you a little bit of financial freedom as well. So that's really what I'm going to explore today. If you've got players that you think that are on this team right now that, you know what, should get shipped off before Tuesday afternoon's deadline, drop them in the comments. If, hey, maybe you think the opposite way. If you think there's a player or two out there as well that maybe we could trade for and yet help this team yet this year, go ahead, put that player's name in the comments as well. Get subscribed if you haven't done so already. But let's kick things off. And the first trade candidate that I have, none other than Odell Beckham Jr., who came to the Miami Dolphins this year with some expectations, maybe not loads of expectations, but those expectations just kept getting lower and lower and lower as he ended up not really participating in the offseason. And then he got put on the PUP list. And we didn't get to see him until just recently. 3 catches for 15 yards through 4 games so far this year. Dolphins fans, if we dealt him right now, would you miss him? Would this team miss him? Would Tua miss him? I'm going to go out there and say no. And the other thing you got going on, look who's healthy and been contributing, especially a little bit as a blocker we've seen the last couple of weeks. Yeah, that's Malik Washington. Like to invest a little bit more, snap some time into him as well. River Craycraft's practice window just ended up getting open last week. Maybe he can return as well, take some of those snaps. And it's not like Odell Beckham Jr. is eating up all these snaps anyways. We only signed him to a 1-year deal over the offseason. If you remember, that contract was very incentive driven as well. So it's really not like we're clearing too much there, and it's not like we're going to have to deal with him after this year. In regards to what we would get in return, there's going to be a theme in today's video. It's probably not going to be too much. I consider those late round picks, it's basically a scratch off ticket. You don't mind them. If you draft a player and it turns out good, that's excellent. You turn that into something. But at the end of the day, if you're out like a 6th, 7th round draft pick and you don't hit, well, odds are you weren't going to hit on it anyway. So you're probably going to get that scratch off ticket for a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. But at this stage of the season, I don't really think that we need what Odell Beckham Jr. provides. So he would be a candidate for me. Let's turn our attention to a couple of running backs that we have got in-house right now, because we have seen Jeff Wilson be a healthy scratch the last few weeks. We have seen Raheem Mostert fumble in crucial times the last couple of weeks. Raheem Mostert is 32 years old, which is a fossil for a running back in today's NFL. Props to him for still having the speed and having the vision, being able to do what he does at this age. But he's 32. There's a potential out in his contract after this year. Another guy you're not going to get much for, but a proven running back in the NFL, even at age 32, that, you know what, a playoff team could get some usage from. Jeff Wilson, on the other hand, he turns 29. It's in the middle of this month, actually. He is a free agent after this year. Like we said, he's been a healthy scratch more often than not. You'd probably get the same, maybe even less compensation for Jeff Wilson than you would for a guy like Raheem Mostert, despite the fact that Jeff Wilson is younger. But parting ways, once again, it gives us the scratch off. And not only would it potentially give you a late round draft pick in return, it opens up for more opportunities for Jalen Wright. So I would like to see Jalen Wright get some more carries by trading away potentially one of these veterans. You get one of those rookies from this year, that much more experience, so that he can really take off, hopefully, in year 2, in 2025. All right, let's turn to the defense here, the secondary. Jordan Poyer already was not having a great year for the Miami Dolphins, and yesterday, Sunday, against the Bills, really put a stamp on it, right? Kind of like I said, the theme of the day, another guy you're not really going to get much in return for. He is 33 years old as a safety, only 1 year deal that he signed this offseason. So quite honestly, with how he's performed so far this year, with just where the team is right now, there's probably not much of a future in regards to Jordan Poyer in Miami the way it is. So you're not really going to get too much out of him beyond this year, even if he were to resign. I personally think there's a chance that he may retire after this year. The current issue with maybe dealing a guy like Jordan Poyer is that we're a bit ravished in the secondary the way it is. There's not currently a lot of depth at safety the way it is, especially if we were to get rid of Jordan Poyer. But quite honestly, I'm kind of cool with the idea of getting rid of Poyer, riding it out with Holland when he returns potentially here. Elijah Campbell, Marcus May. We'll see what happens with Patrick McMorris. Ride it out. If you can get something at this point in time for Jordan Poyer, by all means, Chris Grier, go ahead and get that something. All right, let's stick to the defense here. I would say that Calais Campbell would be one of the more coveted Miami Dolphins due to really how good he's been at age 38. Now, the problem, as you may already know as well, his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, I believe it was Sunday evening, he basically said, you know what, Miami isn't trading Calais Campbell. Now, I was told prior to Sunday that some teams have reached out about Calais Campbell, but they've essentially all been low ball offers, which you're not going to get a lot for him anyways, but low ball offers. And if you deal a guy like Calais Campbell for that low ball offer, well, what message are we sending to this team at this point in time? A lot of these moves would look like we're kind of punting on the season. Calais Campbell would really feel that way. But talk about a guy that's been I would say he's been a really solid fill-in for Christian Wilkins and at a much more reasonable price. But when you sign a guy like Calais Campbell, it's like, all right, we're going to make it happen this year. He's not going to be able to hold up every year. He's not going to be as productive as he's been at age 38 for how long? How much longer can he do this? Another guy that the Dolphins, signed to a 1 year deal. So he's kind of to the point in time where he's going to wait it out in the offseason. If he continues to play as well, he'll wait it out. He'll wait for the right deal to come around. Once again, compensation-wise, you're not going to get much. The age obviously plays a factor in this one. The likelihood of him re-signing with wherever he would potentially end up going. But quite honestly, he is the guy on this roster that I think could probably help a playoff team as much as anyone. It just doesn't really sound, according to agent Drew Rosenhaus, like it's going to end up happening. Let's do one more. And I touched on this one actually, oh gosh, a few 2-3 videos ago, is the idea of potentially trading safety Javon Holland. Now, we talk about Calais Campbell being the most impact player that another team could trade for. Well, Javon Holland would be the guy that the Dolphins could get the most for in return, in compensation. But even that, as we talked about in the past, that's even limited now. Because why? Because Javon Holland is currently injured. He hasn't even been able to play. So he's got injuries that he's dealing with. He hasn't been as productive. We had high hopes for a guy like Javon Holland this season. He's made a couple of plays here and there. Don't get me wrong. His absence was felt in that game against the Bills, but it hasn't been as much of a consistent basis as we were hoping that it would be. He is going to be an unrestricted free agent this offseason. He will be 25 years old next NFL season as well. At this point, it doesn't look like the Dolphins were going to be able to extend him anyways. He is likely going to test free agency. I would say that there's at least a good chance that someone's going to be able to offer more than us anyways. So you know what? If you're not going to be able to re-sign him, this is your time. This is really the only opportunity that you're going to get anything for Javon Holland. So we could talk about potentially getting a compensatory pick down the line. So maybe you don't want to move him just because of that, because you'd have something guaranteed potentially in a compensatory pick at some point this offseason if he does end up walking. But at least, you know, maybe like a big ticket item that the Miami Dolphins could potentially sell, just knowing like, hey, it's going to be, I don't want to say damn near impossible to sign him this offseason, but he's going to have suitors. I think he's going to get offered more than what the Dolphins front office is willing to chalk up. Like I said, Dolphins fans, if you have got another guy that you would add to the list, or if you would like to bring in a guy, like I said, I'm open to all opinions. I am all ears. Go ahead and drop them in the comments. Stay tuned. Get subscribed if you haven't done so already. We will be previewing the Dolphins' next matchup, which is a primetime Monday night game against the LA Rams, a game that I was looking forward to here back in the offseason, but before the season kind of went to hell. It's like, you know what? Let's get some things right here on primetime. And now it's like, you know what? Now the nation gets to watch a 2-6 football team? Yeah. Ooh, enjoy that one, the rest of the NFL. But regardless, stay tuned as we will be back with those preview videos as well. We will wrap it there for today, Miami Dolphins fans. But until next time, fins up.